Everybody's got a price, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price, $1 million man. Everybody's got a price, $1 million man. Everybody's got a pod, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price, $1 million man. Everybody's got a price.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus D'Angelo, and we are back for another episode of Everybody's Got a Pod. And of course, I'm joined by the man himself, WWE Hall of Famer, the legendary $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Ted, what's going on, dude?
Hey, buddy, it's all you, man. I've been running around like a chicken with my head cut off. But and have you ever seen a chicken run around after they cut their head off?
Growing up, when my dad was growing up in the house that I grew up in, apparently there was a chicken coop back there, and he confirmed that, yep, when you cut a chicken's head off, it'll keep going.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my grandfather, I guess, had been a farmer, and what he would grab them by the neck and swing them like this, and that head would come off. Yeah, it would. I mean, it would just separate from the body. And so, he had me do it, and I'm watching this headless chicken run around they'll run around for a second before they drop. And then I look at my hand and I got the head, and I'm like,
Yeah, I can't believe their heads come off that easy. That's wild.
Well,
I guess if you twist it around enough times, they'll just pop right off, right?
Yeah.
Wow. This was not where I was expecting to go on today's podcast, but I'm here for it. I like talking about anything and everything with you. And that is why I like our subject today, because you never know where it's going to take us. Ted, today is our 24th edition of Ask Ted Anything. And your fans brought it as they always do. But Ted, before we get into these fan questions, today marks a really significant date for you. It is July 2nd today. And last year we did a full episode about this subject, this exact same week. However, I don't want to let an anniversary like this pass us by. Today is the anniversary of the passing of your father, Iron Mike DiBiase. And man, I just want to kind of give you a minute. The floor is yours, by all means. What do you have to tell us about your father, Iron Mike?
Here's a guy. He wasn't my biological father, but he's the man who raised me. I was 5 years old when he came into my life and married my mother. And then for the next 10 years, he was dad. So in my most formative years of life, he was there. And so the other thing about, today's not only July the 2nd, but it's Wednesday, July the 2nd. And it's the same day of the week and the date. And the reason I remember that is back in then, and we were in the Amarillo territory. Let's go back. I completed my first year of high school in Omaha, Nebraska. Mm-hmm. And basically my dad's idea was to go back to a good place where he made good money, which was Amarillo, and the connection to the Funk family. And he had seen that I had some talent in football, and he says, we'll put you in a good Texas high school football program. And, Texas is, known for their high school programs and the kids that they put into college football. But anyway, July the 2nd comes every year, but, it was Wednesday, because Wednesday at that time was the day that they wrestled in Lubbock. And here's something else, Marcus. It's, and I just thought of this as I was saying it. Let's fast forward. My father dies. I go back to Arizona. I finish high school in Arizona, in this little town, Wilcox. I had signed a letter of intent to play football for the University of Arizona. I was going to go to Arizona. Tucson was 80 miles from Wilcox, where we lived, the little town where we lived. And so I turned on the TV one day, and it's wrestling. I hadn't seen any wrestling since my dad died. And it's the program out of Amarillo, Texas, and they're coming to Tucson. And I was like, oh my gosh, I hadn't seen any wrestlers or talked to anybody about wrestling for 3 years. And now it's the Funks coming to Tucson. I think they were experimenting, like, maybe I wonder if we can absorb Tucson, because they were already in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Mm.
But anyway, so I see Terry Funk, and Terry, of all the family, I was closer to Terry than, and his brother, Dory Jr., who's a year or two older than him, is still alive, lives down in Florida with his wife.
Yeah.
But the rest of them are gone. And anyway, but Terry was the one I was the closest to. And he was the one that he said, Ted, he says, if you're set on going to Arizona, that's great. He says, but I can get you a recruiting trip to West Texas State. And he said, they'll fly you in there and take care of you. And if for no other reason, just come back to see everybody. And I said, yeah, great. And that's all it took, though, man. I got back in that atmosphere, and all of that, and I knew that's what it was going to do, and it stunned. Oh my gosh, when I say, now Wilcox is only 80 miles from Tucson, which is where the University of Arizona was. Mm-hmm. They all knew I had signed a letter of intent to go to Arizona, and they had a lot of alumni in Wilcox. And then I blew everybody off. I mean, I don't know how many people I made mad, but when I said, look, I've changed my mind, because you could sign a letter of intent with one team, and you could sign a letter of intent with another team, as I guess in another, if they were in another. I don't know, what do you call it, division or whatever. Mm-hmm. But once you sign, then the other one, the last one you sign is what they call the national letter of intent. So once you sign that one, you're committed. Then you can't go anywhere else. But I still had the option to go to West Texas State, and so many of my friends were like, "Why are you doing that, Ted?" Like West Texas State. It's a college football team, but it's not like it's not like the University of Texas. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I said, I know. I said, but what I realized now, I didn't go back there to play football. I went back there because it connected me to my past.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
And professional wrestling.
And professional wrestling. Yeah, it was funny. I can still remember the day I was, and this was when I was married to my first wife. And Terry Funk calls me, and he's kind of like in a panic. He says, "Teddy, are you doing anything tonight?" I said, "No, Terry. Why?" He says, "Well, you're coming with me to Lubbock." And he says, "We need a referee." And he says, he says, "What size shirt you to wear?" And I said, "I'm XXL. And so he says, "I got it." And so he picks me up, and now, it's like, wow. And he knew that I'd been around wrestling long enough, I could do whatever, he says, "Be the referee." And anyway, but here's the other thing, Marcus. And I didn't think about this until I stepped into the ring the first time. I stepped into the ring, the same ring that my dad wrestled in and had a heart attack in all those years before.
And in the same venue?
It was the same venue. It was Lubbock, Texas.
Wow.
And it was this and the same ring, and it was almost like. And this came into my mind, Dad, this is where you left off. And I'm stepping into the same ring that you left off in and carrying it on. So,
man, and did his name proud. The start of your Hall of Fame career. Just incredible, Ted. But yeah, dude, cool to be able to discuss your father here. It's 56 years this year since your father
Yeah,
passed away, so I'm
yeah.
glad to be here with you. And by the way, today's a significant day for me, Ted. Today is my wedding anniversary, so
No kidding.
yeah,
Well, oh my gosh. Oh
big
my gosh.
day, right?
What are the odds of that?
I know, right? Pretty wild, isn't it?
You got married on July the 2nd.
Yes, sir. July 2nd.
Well, you can be sure of this. I'll never, you might forget your anniversary, but I won't.
I better not. My wife is right upstairs. Whew.
Joke.
Slap the damn taste out of my mouth. But no, dude, it's so cool to be here with you to discuss it. And now I'm really looking forward to discussing some of these fan questions that we got because, man, your fans love Ask Ted Anything, and they always turn out for it. So those are coming up. Before we get there, though, Ted, I spoke to you about something that happened to me last week. And I actually did this on my podcast with Jake, Ask Jake Anything, recently, where I spoke about the worst injury that I've taken so far as a
The
professional.
what?
The worst injury that I've taken so far as a professional wrestler. I wouldn't really call it an injury, but probably the most painful experience I've had so far.
Yeah.
And that was I was in a match, not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before. And big guy goes to give me a short arm clothesline and gets me right in the throat. And it's the first time that I've hit the mat and been like, I don't want to stand back up right now because I had to get up and get after the guy. That's the first time it happened. And for your viewing pleasure, Ted, I'm going to show you the video of that happening before I ask you a couple questions about this. So here's me getting decapitated, Ted.
Okay.
Cutting that ring in half, keeping himself between DeAngelis and Jake Wiley.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to keep Wiley out there. He is the freshest guy. But if you think about it, so is Gerard at this point because Dan is just having his way with D'Angelo in his ring. Oh, clothesline.
Right under the jaw.
Just caught him, but here comes Wiley, and oh. And now the Magnificent Gods having their way with Jake Wiley. Jake Wiley looking like a victim of Saul there. My goodness, and D'Angelo.
And you can't turn your back on Marcus.
There it was. It didn't look like much, and I don't think anybody in the audience noticed because I got back up. But brother, I hit the mat, and I was like, really don't want to stand up right now. I would love to roll out of the ring right now, but
Yeah, brother, I don't think that ever happened to me. But I mean, oh my gosh, there have been times, that the showman. I mean, there were times when I can't remember what it was and how I ended up on the floor. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it was from a chair shot or whatever, but I rolled under the ring, where nobody could see me, because there was a canvas, you couldn't look under the ring.
Yeah.
I rolled under the ring so nobody could see me, and I was just like, oh my God. I can't remember who that was, but when I got back in the ring.
Probably don't remember a lot from that, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Good Lord. And that's why I wanted to show you, because I wanted to ask you, Ted, it's like, that was a unique feeling for me where like, ordinarily it's like, I'm bumping and feeding and it's down and back up. And then, here I come to cut the guy off.
Yeah.
And this time I really had to pull myself up. So yeah, I was going to ask you that, like, if there's ever a specific moment where like you remember taking something nasty and saying, man, do I not want to get right up right now?
Well, yeah, I mean, and again, with the career, my God, my career, there were a couple times, and there were, and then the other thing about it is there were times when I was, and it happened to everybody, I ended up having to have both of my knees replaced. I played high school and college football, but you pound your knees, I mean, even though you're wearing knee pads.
Yeah.
How many times do you go from your feet and just drop to your knees or whatever,
bunch of times. Just the up and down of it and get your knees.
Oh yeah, and it's kind of like I just when the doctor examined my knees, he said, "This is a doctor that does knee surgeries to a lot of professional athletes." And he's with Andrews Ortho Sports in Birmingham, Alabama. It's well known. But this guy's name was Jeff Dugas, and he said, Ted, he says, normally we do one knee at a time so you have a good leg to stand on. He said, but you don't have a good leg to stand on. He says, so we're going to go ahead and do both of your knees at the same time. And that's what they did.
Wow.
Yeah. And shooey, brother.
Now, do you think it was more from football, or do you think that your wrestling career was the main contributor in your
I would say more of the wrestling. I mean, because again, high school football is not that big. I mean, and I never got any major injury in that. And then playing college football, I still couldn't remember any major thing. But I think it's with the wrestling, it's the night after night after night and after night. And how many times do you go to your knees?
Yep. Well, especially you were a heel, so you're begging off. So you're dropping your knees to beg to beg off. No, honestly, it's probably more than anything. It's the up and down where it's like you're on your back and bam, you're getting back up to your feet. Boy, it's a lot of use of your knees.
Yes, sir.
Well, yeah, I'm glad I was able to show you that video and kind of get your take on it. I'm glad I was able to stand back up, but the selfish part of me was like, just powder. Fuck this, just powder. But I got back in and got after it. So now with that, let's go ahead and get into these fan questions. Folks, if I don't ask yours here, and we might be rolling it over to the next episode, so make sure you tune in next time. Or if you want to, you can always reach out to me in my DMs on X. That's where I answer most of them. It's at Marcus P. D'Angelo on X. If you've got a good question or a question we haven't answered here before, then I will go ahead and put it on there. The other thing I want to tell you guys about is that you can also drop your questions on YouTube. A lot of times I'll do like a prompt post on our YouTube page. And by the way, you should be subscribed to that page anyways, because not only are we there with Ted, but also my podcast with Hacksaw Jim Duggan is over there, and that's the only place to get it. So go out of your way, go subscribe. The man himself, Hacksaw. Get over there. It's youtube.com/@Golden Era Network. You'll see the prompt post on there. Drop your questions, and yeah, we'll answer them here. Now, look, folks, the other thing I do want to say is that I tend to get a lot of the same questions when I do prompts for this. A lot of people are like, Ted, who's your dream opponent? Or who's your favorite wrestler in WWE right now? We've answered those questions. So come up with something unique. We want something new here. All right, so here we go. Here's a unique question, Ted. And let me preface this one by saying that we bury the Ultimate Warrior on this podcast all the time. And people have started to notice and comment on it a lot. Some people are like, yeah, fuck him. And some people are like, all right, that's enough. So here's the question that we got from Mr. Ultimate Maniac. And I think it's worth exploring. By the way, Ultimate Maniac seems like a good dude. I think he's a huge Warrior fan because he has a picture of Warrior for his profile. So let me just put it that way before we begin. He asks, do you have anything nice to say about the Ultimate Warrior? Now, Ted, I like I said, we've spent a lot of time burying Warrior on this podcast. If you can, what do you think were the best qualities that the Warrior had? If you can put them over here for a minute.
Marcus, that's hard. I'm serious. I mean, the one thing I would say about the Warrior, if you want to say something good, is that to have a body that good. And the guy was ripped. There's, you don't get that way. You have to be very dedicated. And, it's like you got to go to the gym when you don't feel like going to the gym to
Yep.
maintain a physique like that. And I will say that about him. He had a tremendous physique.
Not a lot of people think about the kind of sacrifices that Warrior had to make in order to maintain the physique that he had. Because if you think about it, like, how many times have you been passing a gas station and said, like, I think I'm gonna grab a donut, or like, oh, it's I think I'm gonna go to this all you can eat Chinese restaurant place while you're out on the road. He didn't get to do that shit if he wanted to have the physique that he had. So
Yeah.
you gotta give it up. The dude had a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, time to pause the show to talk about one of my favorite sponsors, and a sponsor that I know is a huge favorite for all the men listening to the podcast right now. Of course, I am talking about Blue Chew. By the way, it's not just a favorite for the men. I think the ladies can really appreciate the benefits of Blue Chew as well if you smell what I'm stepping in. Blue Chew is like a cheat code for your crotch, pal. Stronger, harder, longer lasting. It's like somebody gave your downstairs a little pep talk. And brother, Blue Chew is the original brand offering chewable tablets for better sex. Guys, you know that moment when you're coming in from grocery shopping, and if you're like me, you want to make one trip. You grab everything all at once, fill up your arms. For me, it's like I'm from my shoulder all the way down to my wrist, and then my hands are full of groceries trying to get into the house and not have to make a second trip. Well, let me tell you, Blue Chew is so effective, you're going to have another appendage to hang groceries off of to bring all those in, because, brother, it is going to get your dick rock hard. You're going to love it. Your partner is certainly going to love it. If you haven't tried Blue Chew yet, you could be missing out on the very best sex of your life. But listen, it isn't just about performance. It's about legacy, or third legacy, if you will. Give her group chat something to talk about. You know what those girls are on there texting about you. Why don't you give your wife or girlfriend or significant other, spouse, whoever, something good to talk about? Nothing is going to make you more of a legend than a little Blue Chew. It's time to discover your options at BlueChew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. As always, get your first month of Blue Chew free. Just use promo code EGAP at checkout and pay $5 for shipping. That's it. I'm telling you right now, you are getting erections sent to you in the mail for free. You really cannot do much better on a deal than that. Like, honestly, what do you have to lose? Just give this thing a try. If for whatever reason you end up not liking it, don't do it again. All you lost is $5. It is seriously worth it just trying out. Not just for you. Do it for your partner, pal. Join Blue Chew's mission to upgrade humanity one thrust at a time. Head to BlueChew.com for details and safety information. And we want to give Blue Chew a big thanks for sponsoring Everybody's Got a Pod. Now, speaking of physiques and, gyms and whatnot, Peter D has got a question that I think is a good transition for this. He says, "Hi, Ted. Your cardio always seemed good. Could you tell us about your workout routine to maintain it?" Ted, were you one of the guys doing like squats or on the stair stepper, or what were you doing?
That's what's funny is, I didn't do a whole lot. I mean, I tell you what I did do. And I learned that, they're called Hindu squats.
Yeah.
And, and I used to do them where, there's a way you can do a Hindu squat where you jump forward and then you jump back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Is it lunges?
Yeah, it's not just you can just do squat, but there's a way you can do that squat where you jump forward and you jump back.
Yeah.
And I never mastered that, but I mean, I did a lot of Hindu squats. And it's like you don't have any weights. It's a squat. You're squatting up and down, up and down, up and down.
All body weight.
And the guy that taught me that was this guy. I met him in California. He and his wife lived in the apartment next to us when my dad was still alive. And I think this was in 1967, maybe. Carl Gotch.
Yeah.
Carl Gotch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, this guy was from Germany.
Yeah.
I mean, he told us stories about how he hated the Germans. It's like they talked about how they would drop out of a tree onto the back of a truck and slice the bags open and to get grain food, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I mean, this guy was, I mean, double tough.
You've been
Carl,
through it.
yeah, I mean, and all I ever did was Hindu squats, man, and I had good legs.
Boy, it's funny that you should mention squats because I was talking to Arn Anderson about a year ago, and we were talking about how nothing can really replicate being in the ring. No amount of cardio that you do or anything can prepare you for being in the wrestling ring. But he did say the closest you're ever going to come is doing Hindu squats. He said that because of the up and down, that's going to replicate working out in the wrestling ring.
Yeah.
Now, I have heard other people say swimming is a good way to get your cardio up because it's a full body workout. I don't know. You said you weren't doing stair stepper, swimming, anything like that. It was Hindu
Well,
squats.
yeah, when I was in high school, I was a lifeguard, so I was a very good swimmer.
Okay.
But and I think swimming's very good for, I guess, cardiovascular.
So you were in wrestling shape high school on, because then you went on to play football, and then all of a sudden you're in the business.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got Nacho Supreme, who asks, "Have you ever had any interactions with Mil Mascaras?" Mexican legend.
I never knew him. I was only on a few shows with him, but he couldn't be a nicer guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a real nice guy. And he was good. he was good, and I think because I think he traveled a lot. He didn't stay in any one territory for very long at all, and so I don't know. I think I guess some guys might have been envious of him. I don't know. Not everybody liked him, or I don't know.
He was a megastar and like a movie star, and I think that I know that a lot of folks in the States would kind of get annoyed with him because he didn't like to do jobs in the States. But I think a lot of that is cultural as well. And here he was like a guy who was, he was an icon. Ted, did you ever happen to see him unmasked though, or was he always wearing his mask around you?
Actually, I never thought about it. So if I never thought about it, I didn't.
Jeff Jarrett tells the story of I think they were in the Dallas Sportatorium or something, and Jeff goes to use the showers, and it was like in the Sportatorium, it's like stalls, and you can see the guy's head, and then there's like a barrier from the head down, basically. He said he gets in the shower, he looks over, and there's Mil Mascaras in the shower with his mask on. Kayfabe and the boys. Only in wrestling, dude. Jake tells me that Mr. Wrestling 2 is like that too, though, where he wouldn't take his mask off in front of the boys.
You know what? And that's true. Nobody ever saw him without, but I'm one of the few people who did get to see him without his mask. And I'm going to tell you something. You couldn't tell by his work. I mean, he could work circles around half the guys in the dressing room. Mm-hmm. But it's when he took his mask off that you realized, hey, this is not a young guy. We're looking at it, like this is like an old man.
He was like from the previous generation of wrestlers. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm telling you what, he was really good. So.
Now, I'm curious, Ted, because speaking of masks, Jim Duggan, when he first started out as a wrestler, he wrestled as the Convict, and he came out wearing a mask. I know that Jake, on a few occasions, has worn a mask. Actually, he did a little stint in WCCW where he was called the Texan, and he came out wearing a mask with like the shape of Texas on the front of it. Ted, did you ever wear a mask in the ring?
They don't make them that big.
Not enough fabric.
Look at the size of my damn head. No, actually, I never wore a mask ever.
Probably a good thing. I've heard that they're miserable to work in. Next up, we've got D. Garrett, who asks, do you believe, this is a pretty good question, do you believe that if Sting had come into the WWF in the early 90s, he would have been the next huge megastar to replace Hogan? Or was there nobody who could overcome the Hogan hangover? when Hogan left. Boy, Sting really did have a lot of charisma, man. I think that if anybody could replace Hogan during that period of time, you bring in Sting with his face paint, his neon gear, and his ring work. I think that maybe he could have done it.
Work wise, Sting had it, and he's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
But it's like I don't know that. I don't know that, and I've seen him interview, and he interviewed okay. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. I don't know if he had the flamboyance of a Hulk Hogan. I mean, it's like the one thing about Hulk is you give him a microphone. Oh my gosh, he was so good and charismatic on the microphone.
So, but you think that Hulk Hogan's work on the microphone is what would have set him apart from a performer like Sting?
Yeah, that in his appearance. Yeah, I mean, because the Hulkster. I mean, you got to remember those guys are that big. They're few and far between, and so it's kind of like. But yeah.
We are coming off, I think, and that's a really good point, Ted, is like also the way that Hulk looked and his size. We're coming off the era of like, big musclehead movies like Predator and, The Running Man and stuff like that. And so like a big muscly dude is like, I think that's what the audience was hungry for. Not that Sting wasn't a big muscly guy, but like nobody was 6'8" like Hulk Hogan and is jacked up as he was.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got Ask a Bum. This guy's a bum, I guess, but he's got a good question. He says, Ted, your character is obviously heavily influenced by Ric Flair. Did you reach out to him to ask for advice on how to play the egotistical, wealthy wrestler? Did he give you any advice? Gotta admit, Ted, I never made that connection in my mind that the $1 million was like the $1 million man was like Ric Flair, but I guess he kind of is because Ric Flair always flaunted his money and stuff, and he was a pain in the ass heel. I don't know. What do you think? Is there a comparison?
I don't know that Rick ever came across on TV.
Well, I don't know if you saw a lot of his promos, but back in the day, he would always brag that like his shoes are worth more than your house. He spills more money on, or he spends more money on spilled liquor than you make in a year.
I never saw any of those interviews. So, but gosh, well, I don't know.
Kind of interesting.
Kind of interesting. Yeah, no, but did what was the question again?
Oh, basically, did you ask Rick for any advice on how to play the $1 Million Man? I don't imagine you did.
No.
Like, you weren't even aware that he was doing the rich guy.
No, I mean, that would be like saying, it's kind of like, I don't think I had to go ask Ric Flair about anything because I was my own guy.
Yes.
I didn't need any coaching from Ric Flair.
You did not. He was your peer, and also it's not like you could pick up a cell phone and be like, "Hey, Rick, what do you think about doing that?" As he was on the road with Crockett, you were up there in the WWF, and I don't think that you needed a lot of help.
No, I didn't.
Now, I am curious, Ted, because this made me wonder: were you buddies with Rick? Because for context for fans, you'd been around Rick since like the early '80s. You, of course, had worked.
Rick and I got along. We got along great. Where I saw him a lot before I never worked a territory, so to speak, with him. I never went to Charlotte.
No, he would just come in as the NWA champion. You guys would work every once in a while.
He was in NWA champ, and I had some great matches with the guy.
Yep.
And what was it? I'm trying to think of where it was. It was St. Louis. It was after the show. Went back to the hotel. We're in the bar, having a few beers and everything. And this is while I'm working this is while I'm working for, I'm doing the $1 Million Man thing, right? Okay, so Rick goes, he says, around for the house on the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. and I said, and so we did that, and I said, not to be topped, around for the house on $1 Million Man. And I said, Rick, I said, you know the biggest difference between you and me? He said, what's that? I said, you're spending your money. I'm spending Vince's money. Because he told me, yeah, that was part of the gimmick. Yeah. It's like, he says, just keep the receipts, bring their receipts back to us, and we'll replenish the cash.
Boy, I'm sure that
that was just at the beginning, and like maybe for the first, I don't know, year.
I'm sure that the Nature Boy was like, damn, that would be nice. Money.
He didn't think that was very funny.
Now, Ted, the other thing I want to ask about when it comes to Rick is that late 1991, Rick is going to make the jump from WCW, NWA, whatever it was at the time, as the champion with the big gold belt. So he's got the belt. He had a big falling out with Jim Herd down there, and he just up and leaves. And he says, I'm not coming back. And guess what? I'm not sending you this belt. He goes up to New York with it, and for a while there, Rick was like, they were doing like who's the real champion stuff with Rick up in the WWF, because he still was in possession of the big gold belt. Now that's a huge no-no in professional wrestling, as we all know. If you leave a territory, you put somebody over on the way out the door and give them back their belt. But Rick didn't do that. He didn't do it it's the biggest stage in wrestling. What did you make of that during that period of time? You were with the company.
Well, that's bad business. Yeah, I'm sorry, but when you're on the inside, I don't know what it looked like to the fans. I don't know. The fans would never know. But all the people you work with know. And for you to cut and run, and it's kind of like. So this is like a common courtesy. If you're leaving the territory, you drop the belt.
Yep.
You drop the belt to whoever the next guy is on the rise. I just, it
was controversial, that's for sure. Definitely some controversy during that time. Ted, we'll do a couple more and then get out of here. MJ808 asks, who's on Ted's Mount Rushmore of heel wrestlers, not including himself? So, Ted, the 4 greatest heels ever without you included.
Well,
that's a tough one.
That's tough.
I mean, I feel like we got to give at least one spot up to the guy we were just talking about, Ric Flair, an all-time great heel.
Yeah, I mean, Rick would be there, but there's a guy that when I first started, this guy was towards the end of his run as a wrestler, and he worked for Bill Watts in Mid-South for a while, and his name was Killer Carl Cox.
That's a name that comes up a lot. Yeah, he's great.
He, in my opinion, was one of the best heels. And I'll tell you another one, Dick Murdoch.
Oh, yeah.
Dick, I mean, oh my gosh, Dick Murdoch was so talented. I mean, he could go out in that ring and he'd be telling jokes in the ring. And and what was funny about Murdoch was that he'd get you whatever he did. When he would hit you, he made noises with his mouth. He'd like hit you and go.
Is he just like trying to pop you, or what's he doing?
But no, Murdoch and hey, Terry Funk.
That's a great Mount Rushmore.
Oh,
Ted.
I'm gonna tell you what, whether heel or babyface, you know, one of the goats for sure.
That's a hell of a Mount Rushmore. So with Ted aside, Ric Flair, Killer Carl Cox, Dick Murdoch, and Terry Funk. There you go. That's a good Mount Rushmore, dude.
Amen.
All right, one more question. We're wrapping this one up. This one's from this is a really good one. Chico1680 asks, hypothetical question. It's late 1993, early 1994. Vince, knowing that Ted is retiring, pitches the idea that before Ted retires, he wins the WWF title and holds on to it until WrestleMania 10 and MSG, where he'd drop it to Bret Hart before calling it a career. Would Ted have at least entertained the idea at that point if he knew he was done? I love hypotheticals, and that's a good one. So instead of retiring, Vince puts the belt on you. You've got like a short, maybe 2 or 3 month run, and then you're dropping the belt to Bret Hart, WrestleMania 10, MSG. Would you have done it?
You know, the thing about it was, injury wise, it's like, are you willing to take the risk?
That's
guess.
it. Yeah.
You know, and well, the other thing too was, you know, but the insurance policy that I had was Lloyd's of London.
Yeah.
And that's hard to get. And you know, and I'll be honest with you, you know, once I committed to that, you know, I couldn't come back because Lloyd's of London would have asked for all their money back.
Yes.
So no, I couldn't. You know, if kind of like if I was capable and I could, you know, not break any of the rules, yeah, I would be happy to come back and put Bret over.
And man, imagine the match that you could have had. Bret had a great WrestleMania 10. He wrestled his brother Owen and put him over, but then went to the main event and beat Yokozuna for the title. So Bret had a really good event there. But just imagine the match that the two of you could have had in that setting in MSG. Oh boy.
Yeah.
And boy, Ted, this was a great episode. Always great to talk to you and pick your brain on this stuff. Ask Ted anything. We got plenty of questions left, and we'll get to them down the road. Again, we roll them over episode to episode, so tune in next time if we didn't ask yours, because it might still be on here. Okay. And Ted, brother, I hope that you enjoy the rest of your week. I'll be thinking of you and your father on the anniversary of his passing.
Thank you.
And yeah, man, appreciate your time as always.
Awesome. Hey, you that works both ways, buddy. I can't express enough my my gratitude for. I mean, the work that you put in to preparing for these things. It's just great. I mean, you know, it's kind of like, do you know Marcus D'Angelo? I said, yeah, he's a walking encyclopedia of pro wrestling.
You know, it's funny because, you know, being in wrestling and then also like podcast for a living, it's like I've been exposed to so much knowledge that it's like I think I know your career better than anything that's going on TV today, or even when I was growing up. Because man, it's I'm a Ted DiBiase expert.
Oh boy, yeah.
Well, we will be covering more of Ted DiBiase here coming up next week, and man, I can't wait to do it. There's some big stuff coming up that we're going to talk about. We're going to continue talking about 1985. You apparently do a double turn in 1985. I believe you and Dick Murdoch do a double turn. We'll be talking about 1995 and the second In Your House pay-per-view. So much more. So, man, dude, looking forward to what we have next year on the show.
Well, until then, just remember this. Everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
All right, we'll catch you guys next time right here on Everybody's Got a Pod.
$1 million dreams, tell them all good night. Everybody's got a pod, everybody's got a price.